Thank you very much. I'm going to ask each panelist to introduce themselves, just say a little bit about their company. We've come up with a bunch of questions amongst ourselves about the industry. I put some data up here from a study that we just conducted last month nationwide in the United States, and we may speak to it if necessary. I've got a second slide if anybody wants it. These are both public domain slides. These are not proprietary to any specific client of ours, so I'm happy to provide it to you if you give me your card. I've got a second slide that we may or may not show about modes of watching esports and people's interest in that. But let's go ahead and ask each of you to introduce yourselves, and then we'll get into a dialogue back and forth. We'll kind of do this as a two-man interview, three-man interview.
Sounds good. So I'm Casey Chafkin. I'm the co-founder and COO of Skills, and so if you heard the last presentation, you have a good idea of what Skills is. If you weren't here, we are a multiplayer tournament platform for mobile games. So we enable esports competitions in just about any game on mobile.
My name is Marcus Graham. I'm the Director of Community and Education at Twitch, and Twitch is the world's largest video platform and community for gamers. We are currently at about 50 million average users a month, and I mean, as the report and as Mike has kind of talked about, this is sort of the medium in which a lot of the esports fans are consuming esports content.
Do you mind, Marcus, if I take one short moment off topic and just say that, like everybody in the audience, we've all seen the press coverage the last couple of months about a potential acquisition of you. As a matter of fact, there was so much press coverage of it that some people presented to me as that it actually happened and I didn't know. So would you mind just updating all of us on the Twitch?
Yeah, situation? I can update you with pretty much the same answer that many people have probably heard before. It starts with no and it ends with comment. And that's all I got for you today.
That sounds to me like more zeros.
Yeah.
Okay, well, congratulations regardless. I did actually use the Twitch alleged valuation as part of my defense of GoPro on CNBC the day before they went public, so good luck to you guys. Okay, so let's talk about this really interesting space. And first of all, I understand that you're quite an expert in this space. I know you. We know each other. We've hung out. I didn't know you were a big esports guy beyond the Skill Cash gaming area.
Well, yeah, I think Skill Cash Gaming really is esports, and so for us and our company, we're about enabling esports competitions in just about any game that people are playing. And so I think esports have gotten a lot of press lately, but they've been around for 1981, the Atari had a Space Invaders cash competition. 10 years before that at Stanford. I'm blanking on the name here, but I mean, esports have been around for 30 plus years, and they've only recently rose to prominence as you now have the U.S. government enabling work visas for people who are professional video game players. Call of Duty is now part of the X Games, and you're seeing a $10 million prize in Dota right now, and that's being broadcast by ESPN also.
Are you a Dota and/or League of Legends player?
I'm actually more of a casual gamer myself, and so I think that's probably why I ended up building this company with Andrew, is because I never had time to become an expert in a game. I mean, the last game that I was even remotely good at was the original Halo, and I haven't had time since to become good enough to feel like I could compete in a game. But you find yourself playing mobile games, and you find yourself naturally competing in those, and so you wonder, why is it that you can compete in a game like Halo, or you can compete in offline sports like golf or bowling, but you're not able to compete in the games that you're playing?
And Marcus, I mean, if you run community at Twitch, you're obviously got a deeply rooted history in League and Dota and Call of Duty. One of those in particular, your game?
So actually, in my almost now 16 years of experience in competitive gaming, I began as a professional player myself. I played Quake. Quake 2 is where I actually began making money, and Quake 3 is where I began making a little bit more money. In retrospect, though, I would travel with my team. We would spend $1,000, and we would drive to New York to compete for a competition where we would win 800. So I actually have a negative prize winnings from being a professional gamer, but I was sort of amongst the first group of folks that were really pushing to try to make professional gaming and say, hey, we're competing for money. And back then, it wasn't going to pay my rent, but it was the love of the game. It was the passion for the competition that continued to drive it. And that's probably one of the reasons I'm still in esports today, is just the fire of competition and to see these amazing players and what they're able to do within these virtual games.
Are you still playing professionally?
I retired professionally playing in about 1999, and that's when I began to become a game commentator. So that's when sort of, I guess, my next step in my career of esports, where I moved from player to the John Madden, if you will, for Quake and eventually Counter-Strike, StarCraft 2. I mean, I've probably broadcast about 20 different games in my 15 years as a commentator.
So some of us remember Twitch as Justin.tv.
Yeah.
So just give us a little bit, how do you go from something that got a little bit of attention as a niche a day in the life of ad nauseum into this, multi-billion-dollar alleged valued alternative to traditional entertainment?
Yeah, so, Justin TV was originated at a very unique time on the web, where video is something that people were consuming, but they were consuming archives. They weren't consuming particularly live video. So when Justin TV came around, it began the trend of let's deliver live video, and then let's give our users the ability to chat and create communities around that video. That's where, and one of the reasons why chat interaction is so important on Twitch. What happened is that over a year's time at Justin.tv, people began to realize, okay, some people are broadcasting their cat sleep, some people are broadcasting themselves going to work, other people are doing music, but we're finding that there's a large percentage of people who are playing video games. And what's even more interesting is that people are watching these channels more than they're watching the music, the variety shows, even some celebrities at that point. And it was a pretty obvious realization to everyone at Justin that there was a vertical opportunity here that was to cater towards the gamers, to make a platform, because that was what a majority of Justin.tv was. So it made a lot of sense, and thus Twitch was born.
And there is a Justin, correct?
Yeah, Justin Kahn. He began in 2007 is when he began live streaming himself. That was the concept behind Justin TV, is that this crazy guy wore a camera on his head 24/7, 9 hours of the day he was sleeping, and it wasn't that exciting. The other, a few hours a day, maybe something interesting would happen, but it was new, it was fresh, it was the dawn of video streaming, and it caught a lot of media attention, a lot of eyeballs, and I do believe that his crazy antics are one of the reasons why Twitch exists today.
I do remember the early days. It looked like he was still living with his parents.
Yeah, there's some really questionable footage of him early on. I mean, there's some funny things happen to him from just going to parties and going and visiting his parents to one time he was just sitting answering questions with the chat, and a SWAT team came into the, not San Francisco police, open up. Justin was like, what's going on? And there's actually footage of it on Justin TV, and you hear the police officer go, was someone shot in the chest here? And he's like, no, but I mean, this was truly a live stream of his life. So, thankfully, we can kind of attribute that to the success of Twitch and gaming. It's kind of crazy.
Any indication of casual game becoming part of the uploaded programming, or is the casual area that Casey and I are both involved in more of a doer and no observer, and these other games are a lot of doers but even more observers? So to me, casual gaming is really interesting, and I want to just preface this with, I am absolutely a hardcore gamer, but I am the biggest mobile gamer. I am always playing a mobile game. I'm the guy that buys diamonds and will, buy coins in game if I like a game. So I like to see both sides. As much as I really love the amount of esports content that's taking place on Twitch,
frankly, the casual side of it, which would just be someone playing maybe the newest game that was released on Tuesday, or maybe a Clash of Clans or something. This makes up a very large population of viewers and broadcasters on Twitch. So you can't take one out, because they both sort of support each other on Twitch. And those communities, they cross-pollinate. It happens. So someone might come to the site and be looking for a League of Legends competition and then see, oh, someone's streaming Clash of Clans. I play that. Let me check it out. And suddenly they find out, oh, I can learn how to play this game better, or this guy's giving me tips, or I didn't know I could do that. Suddenly they've come in through eSports and they've converted to casual. Or maybe they already had an interest in casual, and so they come over. And we see the exact same thing happen on the other side. So I think it's very important that both exist on Twitch or anywhere. I mean, some of the things that were mentioned in the last panel and in this panel, I mean, casual gaming and mobile gaming is massive. To ignore it would be foolish. So even though esports is huge and drives a lot of numbers, to us, the casual audience and the potential there is really important. And we want to foster that growth in those communities as much as possible.
And I think for what we've seen is that gamers are gamers, and mobile is just the medium through which gamers are consuming right now. And so it's not surprising for me to hear you say that you're playing mobile games and you're a hardcore gamer, because there are plenty of hardcore gamers on mobile and plenty of hardcore gamers who are playing casual games on mobile. It's just another medium for consumption, and mobile has done a fantastic job of democratizing the gaming space and making everyone from my cab driver to my grandmother into a gamer. And I think that it's not surprising to then see esports following that, where wherever the players are, that's where the competitions are going to be.
You should try an Uber driver.
They're even more
What's a
hardcore
taxi?
gamers.
So do you think we'll see on TV, on the internet, casual skill-based cash game competitions that people will watch, like we saw so much of Poker After Night, Poker After Dark, and that sort of programming?
Well, I think what's interesting is that you can, so if you go online, you can see the exact number of monthly active users for a game like Dota, which has a $10 million prize right now. It's 9 million. Angry Birds has a monthly active user base of 200 million. So the user base for Angry Birds is 22 times the size of the user base for Dota. And so I think that when you think about consumption and where people are interested in viewing competitions, I absolutely believe that you're going to see those casual games being broadcast, because those are the games that people play. Those are the games that people understand. Try asking someone who doesn't understand NASCAR to sit through a NASCAR race, and they're going to say, this is crazy. It's a bunch of guys driving in circles. And so I think it's really important for the health of the sport itself that people understand the games that are being played.
Do you plan any sort of push in that direction from your company and your platform, specific relationship with Twitch or anybody else, YouTube presence, et cetera?
Well, what we already see is users who are playing skills uploading still images from their games. We see them uploading results and screenshots and saying, like, I just beat someone for $20. And so while I can't speak directly to what we're planning in the future, I think you can take, it's a pretty safe guess where the future lies when you already see users engaging in that kind of behavior, where they're interested in sharing the results of their competition.
Do you see skillifying mid-core and core games for the masses? I mean, I think of the competition that Twitch covers so much, Twitch users cover so much, as being a small group of people at the top of the game being watched by a bunch of other people, versus I see you guys as being masses of people playing. Is there going to become a mass skillified for cash, Dota or League of Legends, World of Tanks?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is competitions that exist for gamers who aren't necessarily at the apex of the sport, right? So, and I think you see this in offline sports like bowling, where you can go to your local bowling league and compete in a tournament. I think you see it all the time in golf, where you have country clubs that are hosting charity golf competitions, and those competitions almost always have cash prizes associated with them. And so I think that it's the fundamental nature of competition is that the at the highest echelon of players, those guys are always going to be the ones that garner the most attention, but that your casual competitors and even the casual competitors in hardcore gaming want to compete. And I think you have to ask yourself, where would the NFL be, and what would be the interest in viewing it if you didn't have high school football, college football, corporate two-hand touch leagues, all of
bookies.
all of the recreational, all of the recreational competition that exists in a sport is what feeds into the highest levels of it, and I think that you see the same thing in gaming.
I just want to make a comment on that, because in like large international esports, the farm team concept is such a hard thing to nail, because if you have a 15-year-old player who's good and is able to be on that stage to compete for that $10 million, why would he want to be on the local high school team or the local college team when one of the hottest esports teams in the world can pick him up with the parents saying okay? So we see a lot of push towards collegiate star leagues, like this type of thing, but it really is having a hard time meshing into esports, because the best players are getting younger, and they're already way beyond who would be on the high school team. So it really offers this interesting perspective. As much as we like to make the parallels between esports and regular sports, this is one that it's sort of, it just doesn't work out when you try to compare the two. So it's really, from the big hardcore competitive side, that's one of the issues that we see. Of course, the flip side of that is these 15-year-old, 20-year-olds, whatever, they are doing what millions of others cannot. And to me, that's like the big differential between the casual competing for cash and playing Dota 2. Because I see someone competing for cash and I go, I can do that. I can get involved. I'm going to do that. Whereas like a lot of time in esports, it's similar to going, Michael Jordan just landed that 3-point. I'll never be able to do that in a million years. Similar things happen. That $1 million dream coil that was just thrown out in a Dota 2 competition, like that's it, people want to watch those players that are exponentially better than them. And so that is where like the distinction between player and fan or just viewer. There are so many fans of esports and viewers that just don't play, but they will watch their favorite teams till the cows come home, hours upon hours.
I guess it's interesting when you bring up the challenges in creating that farm system or that amateur league competition in video games, because I do think it'll happen. It just, the delineation won't be on age. So in predominantly physical sports, baseball, basketball, football, you see age as an important indicator of where competitive breaks should happen. But I think really, and even in those same sports, you see, let's take football for example, where you have the NFL, you have arena football, you have Canadian football, you have semi-pro teams, and all of these people are earning a living competing in the sport and have viewers, even then they're all the same age, they're just different ability levels, and that's part of what makes it interesting. Minor league baseball, the players, some of the players are younger in minor league baseball, but a lot of the players are just as old as major league ball players. They're just not as good, and so they group together to play, much in the same way that, a lot of my contemporaries are similar age to professional, LeBron James, for instance, and I like competing in basketball, but I'm not ready to take the court with LeBron.
Right.
He's not a full court. You mentioned international. We've done a little research in China. What do you guys see, both on the casual and the hardcore side, as the international side of esports?
Esports is global no matter what. It's one of the things that I'm personally proud of as far as Twitch is concerned, because having worked on actual television gaming productions for DirecTV, I know what sort of challenges you face when you're dealing with terrestrial methods of sending a signal out. If you didn't have access to DirecTV, guess what? You weren't watching it. And Twitch, it doesn't matter if you're in China, if you're in Europe, if you're in North America, you're able, there's no cable companies, there's no boundaries. Because I don't have Sky, I can't watch that. That's no longer an issue. So We see U.S. fans getting behind the Korean players and the Korean teams. We see European fans doing the same, and even even U.S. teams going over to China and being like superstars and celebrities over there. I mean, internationally, these boundaries were pretty much broken in 2009, even though international competitions were already a thing. I mean, WCG, which was the World Cyber Games, now defunct, but they began in 2000, and it was almost 13 years that they operated on a global scale. They had 74 different countries represented every single year, and it's always been global, but the distribution hasn't been global until just very recently.
So you've yet to be banned anywhere, Twitch. Is that what you're telling me? You haven't really
Yeah.
made it till you get banned in China for at least a while.
I guess we're still doing okay. Either that or they like to watch gaming, so we're good.
And what did you read on the international situation, particularly from the casual side?
Yeah, well, I mean, we see the exact same trends, right? So we see players from all over the world competing against each other. Gamers are gamers. I mean, eSports are an international sport, and so whether it's casual on mobile, core on console, people like competing with each other. Gamers like playing, and so we're seeing a tremendous amount of growth in the international space.
You know, our question that we ask up here is more towards the hardcore esports, and we asked the same question in a study we did in China last year, and I think this was 9% last year, now up 12% in the U.S. In China last year, it was 30% of the game-enabled population, which I'm going to guess is 400, 500 million, something like that in China, and they're going to keep growing.
And I mean, I think it's, when you mentioned that the stats up here are coming from the hardcore space, of course they are. Up until a year ago, when Skills was the first competition platform for mobile games, and so the notion of competing in esports competitions inside mobile games has only been around for a year. We launched just over a year ago, and we had 10 indie games from 10 different studios, and now we're working with 350 different studios, including publicly traded companies all the way through indie one-man or one-woman bands. And so I think the notion of the casual gamer being an esports competitor is truly a new one, but it's becoming an incredibly fast-growing part of the space. So we again, I can only speak for what we're doing as a company, but we recently paid out about a month ago. We paid out our millionth dollar in prizes, and at the time, the total prize pool in all of esports globally was only 10 million, which means that casual mobile gamers or mobile gamers, I shouldn't restrict it to casual, mobile gamers were amassing 10% of the total esports prize pool.
Now that 10 million
For Dota.
Well, now Dota, now there's a $10 million prize pool, and so now it's been, now
Right.
it's 20.
I just want to, the yearly esports prize pool is probably in like the $20 million range right now for, highest level competitive play, which is still a great percentage based off of what you just said, but
yeah, sure, 5%, 10%. It's
right.
It's the notion that this space just didn't exist a year ago and is now. It
right.
speaks to where the players are ends up being. That's where the prizes are going to be, because that's where the competitions are going to be.
Hey, you're the guy spending $1 to make 80 cents, and you're giving him a hard time about
Hey,
5 or 10%.
If I like a game, I'll support.
And the growth is that kind of growth, right? This is doubling in the last it's doubled every year in the last couple of years, right?
For what specifically?
For the total cash.
By comparison, last year's international prize pool, which is crowdsourced as well, I'm not sure if folks are familiar with that, but basically Valve puts up a base amount. I believe last year it was about 1.2 million, and then they sell a digital item called the Compendium, and the Compendium had information about the players, maybe some in-game items, and every time a compendium was purchased by a fan, an additional $2.50 went into the prize pool. Last year, they got up to, I believe, 2.7 million, and this year, crowdsourced, they went up to 10.5 million. So that was just like a crowdsourced initiative that you can see grew huge in a single year. As far as overall, with more companies like Riot, having their own, LCS, and Blizzard having their own World Championship Series, the creation of these leagues and the publishers' backing of them is seeing this overall prize pot across all games increase pretty significantly. So, I mean, it can change. The climate will always change. Some games will come out, of the favorites, and new games will come in, and that will always sort of have an adverse effect on how much money is coming in.
You know, the most locked down game facility I'm ever in, and this includes Xbox, who's famous for being secure and confidential, is actually the Riot offices in Santa Monica. They've got like 3 guards, like 4 receptionists, and I've never been in that office where there aren't a dozen or more foreign tourists, mostly, just wanting to see where Riot is,
Right.
and look at the leaderboards and whatnot that they have. I mean, they could sell tickets to their lobby.
They actually probably could. I mean, they've got a massive user base, so that I don't think they're going to be going down that avenue for revenue stream, but they probably could. If League starts falling off, maybe they have another option.
So when there's 50,000 people in an arena watching one of these games, where does that money go? How does that get divided up?
I mean, that's a good question. Like, every single organization is going to be making a different deal depending on how it works. In some cases, it might be a percentage of ticket sales that is shared. In other cases, there's been cities that have, frankly, hosted these events to bring people into the city and to bring gamers and anyone who will spend money into the city, the stadium, etc. That would be an individual deal that would be made by a Valve, a Riot, etc.
And then the concessions and the beer and all
Sure.
that just goes to the stadium.
I mean, again, since this is also pretty new, I would imagine that a Riot and a Valve would sort of follow under the similar guidelines as a professional team if they were there, or another big event that was there. So if there was any sort of shared revenue, I assume that would be something that would trickle down, to them and their event as well.
Okay. Good. Let's talk a little bit about demos then. I think you get this kind of traditional expectation that, and I would say this is probably not accurate with RPG in particular, but that it's a bunch of men playing these hardcore League, Dota, et cetera, Call of Duty, and that it's a bunch of women, middle-aged women. We used to call them Pogo Walmart moms, and we said that affectionately, playing the casual games. I don't really have a sense that's accurate.
From the, speaking from the competitive, the high-level eSports, I guess you could say, the professional teams and whatnot, I think that we're seeing a predominantly male 15 to 35 who is interested in playing and watching and following their favorite teams. But the beauty of it is that we are seeing a lot more females being engaged as fans, being engaged as players, and being their own broadcasters as well. And, for me personally, having spent so much time in esports, it was pretty rare to see a gal around some of the competitions that we went to, but now it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot different. Still widely scaled towards the male demographic, but we're definitely seeing that growth. And I mean, the casual side's much different. But what do you think?
Yeah, certainly in mobile esports, what we're seeing is that it's very, very even, and so we see it really just depends on the game that people are competing in, but that women are just as likely to be esports competitors as men are, and I think that's the beauty of mobile gaming in general, is that, as I mentioned earlier, as mobile has democratized gaming, the competitions in mobile are truly democratized also, and we see an even mix of men versus women. We see older people competing, younger people competing. It's the people who are already playing the game, who are just looking to compete.
I know I should know this, so I apologize, but is there an 18-year-old limit in the skills?
From a legal perspective, you can be 13 to compete in cash competitions, and I think you see that in chess tournaments that have 13-year-old competitors, or as Marcus just mentioned, that some of the best gamers are under 18 years old. Under 18 years old. For us, we do have an 18-year-old. We require people to be 18 in order to play for real money on the system, and predominantly, I think that is just because there's this, and it's funny. There's sometimes a negative perception where people ask us all the time, "Is this gambling?" when we're enabling people to compete in esports on mobile, and it's something about casual gaming and money that people have this association. And what I'd say is really it's a lack of recognition of the skill that goes into it, because gambling is devoid of skill, and so people say, mobile games plus money, that must be gambling, and it just couldn't be farther from the truth. But because of that, I think we tend to play it very, very safe in terms of public perception of what we're doing, and so we require people to be 18 to play on the system.
So you're a good laboratory for looking at male, female, old, young, as Hollywood likes to call it, the 4 quadrants of entertainment consumers, because you've got them all. What are you seeing? Or is one age group or one gender spending more time, spending more money, have a better win rate?
Well, I mean, younger people there's a higher penetration of smartphones among younger people, so we do see more younger people playing. But it's, what's so interesting is the demographics of competition follow the demographics of gaming. That competition is very intrinsic to gaming, and so the people who are playing on our system and playing competitively map to the demographics of the people who are playing the game, period. And so we haven't published anything in terms of what the economics look like of older players versus younger players, but what I can say is that it follows very closely to the economics of the players, and so the skills population is something of a referendum of the general population of mobile gamers in general.
Marcus, I meant to ask you a little bit earlier about this. There's some esports out there in sports, right? Like Madden and FIFA and whatnot.
I mean, there is. It's kind of. I mean, it's interesting because FIFA had the FIFA Interactive World Cup that ran in tandem with the World Cup, but that was sort of a special event around the World Cup, and we don't see traditionally very many sports games competitions. Why? Partially because the publishers have, the Madden Challenge from EA, that's been their baby. So that, other organizations haven't necessarily gone into there. You also see that in Europe, the FIFA competitions are much more abundant, but not so much in the US. So sports games are a little weird because they don't necessarily translate the same way from country to country as well, because some sports are popular here, others not here. So there are professional sports games players, but you don't find them as often.
Are you suggesting that we're talking about 2 games that EA makes, that they're less supportive of esports than Riot or?
I mean, frankly, I would say that they had the foresight early on to go, people really enjoy playing Madden. Let's create the Madden Challenge. Let's get the best Madden players in the world and let them duke out and find out who's the best. You strip everything down, and that is essentially what esports is 2 individuals competing for however much money they were putting up. I mean, the Madden Challenge was almost ahead of its time, if you look at it. I mean, it was started when there wasn't video streaming, when no one was necessarily going to put it on television. So, I don't really fault them for not necessarily having the same support now versus what they might have had even 8 years ago, because they tried something maybe in the wrong climate, but they tried something. Right now, sports games just aren't necessarily the go-to game for people who want to compete for money, and so that's, a tough challenge for them.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about where you think this is all heading. How much time do we have left, Jesse? Are we still doing okay? Okay, great. Well, that's a great question to end on, and then we've got a few minutes for the audience, right? So where do you think this is heading? Let's put this as a 2-part question. One is just kind of intellectually, what do you think we'll see over the next year or two? And the second part of the question is, give us your boldest, semi-reasonable prediction for this industry. Go ahead.
Where I see this going
He knows
is
to go second.
where I see this going is competition and esports are going to be where mindshare is. So you see more people playing video games than playing all sports combined, and so I believe that esports will be a bigger industry than all sports combined. I think when I think about mobile and when I think about video games in general, I think that and I don't actually know how bold this is. Maybe for some of the people in here, but I genuinely believe that every game will have esports competitions in them, and some of them may not have cash prizes because the audience is too small, and some of them may not be streamed because the interest is only niche, but that the notion of competitive gaming will penetrate into every game.
I mean, I would agree with that. I guess my big bold statement for where this is all going, having been in this industry for about 15 years now and seeing it grow from the few $1,000 tournaments here to now the $10 million competition that just took place this past weekend. I mean, exponentially, we have seen some pretty amazing growth in that amount of time. As large as general sports, I think that there's still some things that esports are trying to figure out, and just recently some of the walls that have been knocked down. For example, like how do you get global acceptance of esports, and how do you have teams from China be able to compete alongside the teams from the U.S. and from Europe? There's still a lot of infrastructure challenges that go along with it. But frankly, I have to agree. I see competition. Yes, people are paying millions of dollars for it, but you know what? 20 years ago, it was me and my brother playing Street Fighter, best of 100, Ultimate Supreme, walk away with the belt. That was a competition. That competition is always fueling gamers. To be able to put cash to it, to be able to put pride on it, that my name on that leaderboard, or holding that $1 million check, or winning $500 a month from skills, I feel like this all sort of stands and aligns with one another quite well. I'm one of the guys who, a lot of people call me crazy, but I think that we will see a mobile esport on the level of a League, a Dota, one day. We're gonna have the smaller games, more casual games, but we're also seeing developers going, we can make an equally awesome competitive experience on mobile. So, I mean, I see it all growing, and I think that we will see competitions just continue to fuel a lot of the growth.
I nominate Hearthstone for that breakthrough game.
Yeah, they're doing pretty good.
That could absolutely happen. Hey, Melissa, you mind if I just put you on the spot for a second? We have Melissa Blau in the audience, who's probably acknowledged as probably the world's expert in real money gambling online. Do you think we're going to see esports in Vegas and the Ritz in London and so on and so forth? Thanks, Jesse. Hold on, we're going to give you a microphone, Melissa. Melissa's probably just in from London and Miami, etc., so she's probably got a little jet lag.
I think that we would. I mean, I was reading that we were, they have the rock, paper, scissors in Vegas and a competition, so I can easily see something like this taking place. I think there are other similar things that have taken place that are quite similar in Vegas.
Seems like you could have sports rooms too.
Oh, you mean in the sports books?
The book rooms. Seems like that would work for video games too. Just stream Twitch. Side bets.
Well, right now we're seeing online in Europe a lot of novelty bets becoming increasingly popular, like on Paddy Power and Betfair. So I mean, a lot of people just sit home on Saturday nights and gamble on X Factor in the UK. So yeah, I can easily see that going that way.
Very interesting. Okay, other questions?
There's also a startup called, I think it's Betly. They're taking bets now actively in Europe on games like LoL and Warcraft 3. So it's happening.
Just another sport, right? Esports.
It is another sport. It's actually the fastest growing sport in the history of human sports. So.
And those are they're betting on the professionals, or they're betting on?
They're betting on tournaments, on online tournaments, and players.
You think people are at home? You think people are at home betting?
Yeah.
Against each other?
Yeah.
Or online?
I would guess it's going to happen.
Okay, we got
questions.
Very far back. I'm not sure if we've got two head scratchers here or questions. So we'll go in the very far back for 1, 2, 3 if you have one.
Yeah, in terms of eSports, in terms of people actually being able to gamble on eSports, I always thought that was kind of a no-brainer for the future. However, I'm curious what you all think about how do you prevent collusion and cheating in that case. I think that's, for me, that would be part of the fears setting it up. So I'd be curious about that.
Yeah, actually, your concerns are valid. I mean, esports is not without blemish. There have been, not on the scale of $10 million pots, but the $300 pot for this fighting game. Yeah, we've seen it happen lots of times where the two players have said, "Let's play. We'll split the pot," and it's really interesting because the audience hates it. They don't like it. They want to see these two guys go at each other like they hate each other, and they want to see their skills, as best as they can show. And that pressure from the fans of esports has been so heavy on these competitors that that's taken a lot of attention. And obviously we're seeing that go away. Like tournaments saying you can forfeit your winnings if we find out collusion. I mean, they take it very seriously. So while it is potentially a thing, and we've actually seen it happen before, that would be my concern as well. I don't know how you stop that. I suppose that you'd need to look at what is helping the sports in a similar aspect, because the same things could happen there. I don't know what regulations they have in place. I don't know what practices they have to avoid that sort of thing. But in the infancy of esports right now, it's definitely something that's being observed and taken care of, if you will.
And even in live real sports, you've seen people have paid players to throw games. That happens too, right? So it's really the same type of thing that you're dealing with. Any other questions? Mike, who's next?
Right here, the striped shirt.
Striped shirt.
Or sweater or whatever the heck it is. You're third. Oh, you came up with a question. You're good. Get ahead. Get ahead of here.
I'm curious to hear what kind of features you think will define a more casual type of esport watching, because what we've talked about a lot seems like is pretty focused on hardcore. So I'm curious to hear how you think either the watching behavior will change, what people will do as they watch, if they're looking more to learn, or something along those lines.
I think you see consumers of esports watch for a number of reasons. Some people watch and consume because they're interested in becoming better. Some people watch and consume because they're competitors themselves, and they like to marvel, or they like to, they want to see what the best athletes and the best esports competitors are capable of doing. But I don't know that mobile and content that's on mobile, I don't think that the consumer behavior there is very different, because there are still very nuanced strategies that are involved. There's still a lot of thought and a lot of strategy that goes into the games, and particularly as the content on mobile evolves. I'm just not sure that mobile is a lot of people believe the future of gaming, but it's not radically different in the sense of people are going to watch for different reasons. It's just the next medium for gaming.
You think we'll see easier, or really any capability on phones and tablets for video capture, and therefore easier upload sharing and streaming?
I mean, to comment on that, like we already have a mobile SDK that we implement into mobile titles, and the whole concept is the ability to be able to broadcast directly from the app. So that's something that, again, you can't ignore the mobile space. This is an important area, and so that's just one of the many things that we're doing to try to make it easier for mobile gamers to share their content, not only with their own communities, but with hopefully new viewers. And I wanted to comment a little bit on what you'd asked about the casual side. I think Clash of Clans on Twitch is like an amazing example of why people would watch. The first time I saw the top Clash of Clans player, and this is within the last month, with 9,000, 10,000 people watching, that's kind of mind-blowing to me. But when you think about how many people have actually downloaded Clash of Clans, then suddenly it's like, actually, maybe that number should be a little higher. But when you start diving deeper and go, why are people watching this? It's education. It's personality. It's that they maybe want to live vicariously through this player because they do spend hundreds of dollars on their tribe, whatever, their clan, and then they can't do that. So those three reasons are kind of the driving three reasons that you see behind fans of those types of those broadcasters.
Thanks. We have time for one more question.
Great. Last question there in the front.
Thanks. We're developing a MOBA game for mid-core players for Facebook and tablets. And my question is, what are your thoughts about mid-core eSports gaming and competition?
I'm all for it. Like I said, knowing the mobile penetration around the world, knowing that competition drives a lot of the games that we're playing. I mean, you'll hear that from both of these folks. I personally feel like there are. I think it's going to happen. A lot of my passion is speaking right now because I firmly believe that with so much penetration, like it's inevitable, right? It is going to happen. We're going to see that gap close between, a Bejeweled and a League of Legends, which seems like a huge gap, but it can be closed. And for the people who do play League of Legends that maybe aren't into casual games, that's the type of game that's going to move them closer to that. I firmly believe that because they're familiar with that game already on the PC. So if you can reach those folks, I think that, you're sort of benefiting esports and competitive gaming as a whole, because I see it eventually, always going to be on PC, always going to be on console, but like mobile, it can't be ignored. So I'd love to hear what you think about this.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's casual, mid-core, or core, competitors are going to be wherever games are. And so if you're building a mid-core game, the notion of competition with other people who are playing that game, I don't think it changes based on the game mechanics that you're integrating. Just as competition in the offline world, you see people competing in incredibly simple, repetitive tasks or very complex sports. And I think it's, I just think that you're going to see esports and competition wherever there are players. So
I just wanted to say one last thing as we wrap up the panel. Jesse has been here all day long emceeing. He's been in this room. It's a little hot and muggy outside, remarkably enough, in San Francisco. But I do think the room needs to give Jesse a little round of applause.
Thanks, Mike.